If you have a mirrorless camera, chances are you've heard about or you already have this lens. It's called the Fujian 35mm. It's a C-mount lens that's popular for having a max aperture of 1.7 and costing $20 or about $20. And if you know about the Fujian 35, you probably also know about the little brother, the Fujian 25mm. Both are great lenses for having really fast apertures at a really low cost. Now, they're not good lenses technically. Traditionally, both fail to live up to the traditional sense of how lenses are supposed to perform. The Fujian has 6 aperture blades that are pretty badly constructed. No point do the blades line up to form even sides. Glass itself is flawed where you can't get sharp edges even at higher f-stops. And even on an aesthetic level, the lens isn't that great looking because it's originally taken from a CCTV camera. But you can't really complain because it's cheap, right? Well, I found a better one. I was surfing on eBay for C-mount lenses, and I found this out of the blue. A Nameless 25mm 1.8 C-mount lens. Now, the first thing I noticed was how much better it looked. In fact, it obviously is taking design cues from Leica. Similar bevel, similar grip design, similar font even, made from smooth matte finish metal. For $35 to $40. And that's not much more than a Fujian, but it looks really expensive. So how does it feel? Well, there's no cheap rubber grip on the rings. It's 100% metal construction. The rings are incredibly smooth, not too stiff, not too loose. They feel really solid. It's pretty small, a bit fatter than the Fujian, but also shorter, so it doesn't stick out as far. It really looks and feels like it was made for a mirrorless. So what about the performance? A lens that's roughly around the same price that looks better? Surely it's got to sacrifice performance. It's far better than the Fujian. Obviously, it gets the dreamy haze from end to end on aperture, but in between apertures, it's pretty sharp across the frame. There doesn't seem to be blurry corners, really. Also, the weight feels substantial but not heavy. The lens is very compact. I have a bunch of wide-angle lenses that are 16 to 35mm. They're giants compared to this lens. The size is very unassuming, so turns out it makes a great street lens that you can use anywhere. Another great thing that really adds to the versatility is its minimum focus distance. You can focus at subjects less than a foot away, making it handy for really nice close-ups. The best thing about this is the aperture blades. It has 8 aperture blades that are very nicely constructed to form a highly symmetrical opening at every f-stop. The image quality is just fantastic for $35. So for $35, you'd be insane not to hurry and pick one of these up. And so far, it seems to be a perfect lens. Is it actually perfect? Well, of course not. It's $35, something has to give. And that something is the rear mount. The rear mount turns freely, only stopping at 2 points. This kind of leads me to believe it was deliberate. Like when you screw on the lens to the adapter, you can adjust the lens body separately so that the controls face upward. The problem is it doesn't really stay put. And if it doesn't stay put, you can't really use the controls then. There are screws located in areas that seem to indicate a way of locking down the mount, but they don't. These screws are independently for other things. So, well, what do? Well, what I did was just glue it down, which actually works great. But make sure to glue it down after you align the lens body correctly facing upward. So here's what you do. You just screw the lens on to the mount. And now, just as it starts to lock, hold the back and turn the body so that the numbers face the correct position. So I know that this is the top, so that's kind of where I want it to be. And then carefully unscrew the lens from the mount. Now you can use like epoxy or like super glue and just kind of lightly dab the edges on the outside of the mount, just on the outside of the mount. Don't do it on the inside because that's how it zooms. So you don't want to put any glue in there. Make sure you just do it on the outside and just let it sit and dry and just leave it overnight. And in the morning, you'll have a mount that doesn't move. So now it's perfect. Unbelievable lens for $35. It's small, cheap, feels substantial. The controls are great, and the image quality is impressive. Now that the lens mount is locked in place, this has easily become my favorite lens to use on a mirrorless.